Recording in progress. Welcome to episode -1 of the Rise Up Odyssey podcast. We're getting very close to the positives here. I'm your host, Danny, with my co host, Haley. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what just happened about 20 minutes ago. Uh, so I was taking my potato wedges out of the oven, and they were out for a little while on parchment paper. So I put all the wedges on a plate like normal people would. And then instead of taking the pan to the garbage can, I decided it'd be a good idea to just take the parchment paper to the garbage can. And then it started leaking a little. So then I started moving it a little to make sure the oil didn't leak and this and that. Well, then the paper ripped right as I got to the garbage can. And as soon as I hit my foot to open the garbage can, all the oil spilled everywhere, including on my arms. And it's a little warm. So that's the lesson today. Bring the pan to the garbage can and don't cook. Don't be healthy. That's the whole thing, right?
I think so. No,
Okay.
it's not. But don't take parchment paper without added support if it has hot oil.
That's the lesson. That's a better lesson. I agree. It
Be smarter than the parchment paper.
was pretty smart parchment paper, man. A dollar store
Mm,
parchment paper is real smart,
that might be your problem.
probably.
Okay, upgrade.
It's $1.29 now, actually, because
Yeah,
Dollar Tree raised their prices, inflation.
the,
Anyways,
the $4 better.
$4 wood's better, probably.
Less burns.
To be fair, it's the first time it ever burned me, but lessons learned.
The oven's hot.
The oven is hot. The
Mhm.
food better be good. It's waiting for me. But yes, today's episode, after that wonderful tidbit, is going to be a little bit about the pursuit of happiness. Um, I think it'd be a good idea for us to briefly define the pursuit of happiness and just its message in media these days, all that fun stuff. Um, but what is pursuit? Pursuit is an effort to secure or attain. And happiness comes from the Old Norse and Old English root, and it just means luck or chance. Another definition would be an emotional state characterized by feelings of joy, satisfaction, contentment, and fulfillment.
Yeah, which we've kind of talked about quite a bit lately of like what is happiness even, right?
Yes.
And and I think a lot of times contentment and fulfillment has come up in our conversations. So it kind of makes sense. It's just like a state of being.
Yes, I would agree with that. It's a state of being. I would also say that contentment is more so where I see happiness to being, where if you're not going through a ton of negative emotions and you're pretty content with life, things are going the right way, not crazy. Like to me, that's happiness.
How do you think others see happiness?
Guess you'd have to ask them, Haley, how do you see happiness?
I don't know. I think before you have this whole picture in your head of what happiness should be. Uh and I guess I've never really thought about it in deep thought of what the heck is happiness, because we just think it should be. But, I think the more I think about it and analyze it, it's something you create. It's what you believe. And so what is happiness to you is your own thoughts, your own beliefs, and then are you pursuing them? So that's kind of where we came up with this whole concept of the pursuit of happiness, which social media can tend to skew how we see happiness or life reality, and we start to believe that it's this whole falsity. I don't know. How would you describe it? Social media, pursuit of happiness, how we don't define things for ourselves anymore and we rely so heavily on video, songs, things outside of our lives.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of our conversations on and off the pod have been about defining words, right? Like,
Hmm.
what do we believe those definitions are? What does Google say those definitions are? What does Webster say those definitions are? And like, what do those words mean to us, right? I think
Correct.
happiness is a really good one to talk about, because you and I have such different thoughts of happiness and like what they should be.
Oh, that's my dog. Just ignore him. Well, one
Hi,
of
Phil.
them.
But yeah, I think we just have different thoughts of what they should be, right? And I'd say also that, yes, social media definitely skews everybody's reality these days. That is just what it is now, unfortunately.
Right. And I think we talked a little bit about a couple of examples of social media, such as the movie called Pursuit of Happiness. And then also you said there's a song by Kid Cudi. Is it also called Pursuit of
Pursuit of
Happiness?
happiness. Yep.
Okay. So same concept. It's just one's a movie and one is a song, but I would have a feeling they're very different as well, but the same story, but also different.
Yeah, I would say the Pursuit of Happiness, the Will Smith movie from, I believe it's 2006. Um, he goes more into depth of, the American dream and having a family and doing the right things for his family and making sure his kid's okay and teaching his kid the right example and getting out of the crazy debt he put himself in because he wanted to sell, I believe those were like medical device machines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas the Kid Cudi song is more about him falling into a better word. I can't think of a better word now, but sin, right? Like more parties, women, alcohol, drugs, that kind of thing. And you figure it's complete polar opposites. And it's interesting because the Kid Cudi song came out in '09. So it directly followed the movie. And so you think about it and you're like, I wonder why Kid Cudi took that perspective of the pursuit of happiness. And I mean, even one of the lyrics is driving drunk, I'm just doing my thing. Right. And you'd think in his head, he was like, okay, I'm pursuing happiness. This is what everybody told me would make me happy. But truly, it isn't.
So in the movie, because I'm having a hard time recalling the movie, it's been a few years since I've watched it. Uh, it's a father and a son,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, and he came from nothing, was trying to
Yes.
build a life for himself and his son.
Yes.
And did he achieve that?
Yeah. By the end, he ended up working for Wall Street, got an interview somehow, some way, didn't drink water so he could make more calls than anybody else, showed more hard work, didn't go to college, like that type of thing, ended up making it work for him. Um, that was the nice ending to the movie. But I
Okay.
think one of those lines that I remember was him playing basketball with his son. And it was something like, don't even let me tell you that you can't do something. Because I think his son was trying to make a jump shot or something. And he's like, you can't do it. And then he's like, you know what? Don't even let me tell you that you can't do something. And that's what stuck with me from that film.
Is that because he'd been told he's not capable, he's not good enough? And so instead of believing what others have put in your head, he had to find belief in himself to achieve real happiness.
Exactly. Which is, I think, what we preach a ton is as soon as you can start believing in yourself, you can actually make things happen.
Correct. What about the Kid Cudi song? How old was he roughly? Do you even know when he
Well,
wrote
he's
that song?
36 now, right?
Okay.
Song was
Sure.
in '09. So, yeah, I mean, he's either 36 or 39 now, but he was probably in his mid 20s and late 20s. Probably realized that I think that song came out after he had a little bit more fame
Mm.
in the world. So he probably realized that like the money, the women, the drugs, the alcohol doesn't really make you happy.
So do you think he called it the pursuit of happiness, but maybe from our interpretation, it was the pursuit of fame that he thought was going to make him happy or materialistic things?
Yes, that's kind of my recollection of it. Is he
Okay.
pursued the materialistic things, didn't realize that it not going to end up making him happy, and then wrote that song to kind of warn others. Is kind of the way
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it. Is hey, you're
Oh,
not going to be happy from this.
did
Whereas
it
the Will
say
Smith,
that?
hmm?
I'm sorry. Did
I,
that say that in the song? Like in his lyrics, did it turn around from chasing cars, women, money, fame to more wholesome life?
I think more of his songs afterwards did. So I think it was kind of like a precursor,
Okay,
right?
following. Yes,
Yeah,
got
like
you.
I believe the song Love came out right after that or pretty recently after that. And that's kind of where he meant more of the like, hey, if you're lonely, it's okay. It's the same road. The hero has to go through all the BS.
Like what we call distractions and things that make us feel good for a moment. And then
Yes,
they lose that shininess, as I call it.
exactly. Because you're not you realize that you can do so much of the hedonistic things, but realistically, and maybe we're just weird in this, but I get more joy and pleasure out of going to the gym and doing my workouts and like I get much more joy out of that than I do, drinking a fifth now. But maybe
Do
that
you,
just comes with age.
do you think we all go through this phase? I think where, like as a child, a brand new toy was so cool at first. And then in a matter of it could be minutes, days, weeks, it's just sitting around. It's not fun anymore. It's not shiny. We don't value it. So I think as a lesson in life, things are fun when they're shiny and new, but what meaning do they have beyond that from that moment?
And that's true. And then do we assign that meaning to those objects and things? Or, because if we don't assign any meaning to those things, then they just get tossed to the side. Nobody looks at them like a kid. But if there's meaning behind them, I feel like we use them more.
Well, isn't it like Toy Story, the movie?
Yeah.
And they keep making more and more of them. And they always come back to Andy, right?
Yep. Every time.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting perspective because like Andy kind of let the toys go, but they keep coming back to him.
Because he probably still has meaning behind those toys. Like he lets them go, but he probably still has some sort of attachment to them. That's why they keep coming back. Kind of like when we watched the Barbie movie, was that yesterday, 2 days ago? And it was the mom, right? That had the attachment still to her Barbies in her 30s or 40s, however old she was,
Like
portrayed to
this,
be.
like what's nostalgia to you? I guess.
Nostalgia to me is like it's more of a positive term, I'd say. It's something that in my past that I liked or enjoyed doing. I'd say tennis is probably nostalgic for me because I played tennis in high school. That was fun.
So like good memories, typically.
Typically, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so there's probably some nostalgic aspect to her Barbiehood.
Mhm.
Fun, play, maybe played with friends or her parents, or there's some other attachment with that created that positive memory, and it's hard to move past that.
Exactly.
But then she
And
came full circle in the Barbie movie as well, where eventually you do have to kind of move forward in life and find that like happiness within yourself beyond that childhood.
that was some of the memories during her flashback, if you remember that. It was like all of her playing with her daughter. And so I guess she wanted her daughter to have the positive memories that she did of Barbie, but they didn't really go that way. And so she had held
Right.
on to them.
Because again, we all have different definitions of what brings happiness to us in our life.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a good place to, go ahead and talk a little bit about what brings us happiness versus what brings us joy, right?
Is there a difference, Danny?
I would say there is. I would say that certain things would bring me more joy than happiness specifically. Just like I think
Example.
contentment is different than happiness is. Well, I would say like joy would be winning something unexpected. Like if we think about scarcity brain and gambling and stuff like that. Um, if I wasn't expected to win a jackpot playing a slot machine and I won a jackpot, that would bring me joy, I would say, but that wouldn't bring me happiness. It would not. It would be, oh, this unexpected thing happened. This is so cool. Yay, I won money. but it wouldn't be a thing that, because I think happiness is long term. Maybe that's where I'm getting at with this. And joy is more short term, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Okay. I think I'm following what you're saying there is joy is very immediate and happiness is a result of many moments of joy.
Yes.
Okay. That makes
Many
sense.
moments of joy and contentment. And just long term being okay with yourself, your life, what you're doing on a daily basis. I think that's where happiness comes from.
But can you be happy in that moment? Just happy.
I think anytime I'm not feeling depressed or sad or negative, I'm happy.
Cuz it's like that song, right? If you're happy and you know it, clap your
I've-
hands.
yeah.
Not to take you back or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. To preschool. Uh,
But it wasn't like instead of if you're happy and you know it, it wasn't if you're joy and you know it. So I was just
mhm.
curious, like, if they could be interchangeable, but when you talk about happiness, that's the long term state of being, the
I see
pursuit
what you did.
of.
Yes. I think you can be happy in a moment, but I think happiness comes from long-term contentment. I like that. Yes, that's exactly where I was going with that.
So you're saying happiness is an outcome, but being
Yes.
happy could be a quick emotion or feeling. What would it
I
be?
would say it's be a feeling.
Okay, a state of
Yeah.
being.
State of being.
Is joy also a feeling or an emotion?
I feel like joy is also a feeling, but I think it comes from an emotion or an external thing that happens. I would say that
Mhm.
also joy and happy are probably externally caused, whereas happiness and contentment are internally caused. That makes
Correct.
sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to find happiness within yourself because nothing else can make you happy all the time.
Yep. And I also think that we have the wrong, or folks can have the wrong definitions, at least I did years ago, where when I thought to be happy, I would need this and that materialistically. I would need to have, this and, a bunch of stuff, a bunch of ridiculous things. But
Well, kind of like the song that you were
yes,
talking about, Kid Cudi.
exactly.
Like that's probably why it resonated with you at some point.
Yes, very much so. And
Okay.
now I've come to the point where I've realized that that stuff doesn't make me long-term happy. And I think what I was chasing was a dopamine feeling. Not to get all sciencey here, but I was chasing this like brain chemistry thing instead of, which is, dopamine is just pursuing. It's a chemical we get from pursuing action that we're rewarded for. And I think I was getting that. I was trying to equate that with happiness, but dopamine doesn't bring happiness. Dopamine is just you chasing something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like the book Atomic Habits talks about like it's actually your highest dopamine is the craving of something. And then once you do that thing, your dopamine actually doesn't spike as high.
Yep.
And I thought that was kind of crazy, but it makes sense. You just keep craving something, craving something. You think it's going to have a specific outcome, but then once it's over, you're kind of like, oh, it's over. What's
Yeah,
next? so so yeah, that makes sense that a lot of us think objects and statuses and belonging are going to make us happy, but if you don't do the work inside yourself, it's going to leave you kind of empty.
exactly. And I think before I had just felt empty from doing all those activities. And then once I started to realize that happiness is not this crazy feeling, like it's not joy, right? And I think I used to equate it with joy. Happiness is just not, to me, is just being content and enjoying yourself and not being scared, afraid, angry. Like I think it's the absence of those emotions instead of it being one particular crazy emotion like joy.
Yeah, like we've talked about a couple times, it's a state of being. It's a moment. It's something that constantly is what they call a moving target. It doesn't
Yes.
stay in one place. It changes as we change, as the world changes, happiness changes as well. And if we forget to continue the pursuit, we lose focus and we become unhappy.
And let's stay with that for a second. What is the pursuit of happiness? So we've defined happiness, we've
Mhm.
defined happy and joy and all of that. Let's go back to the actual pursuit of it. What does that
Like
look like for you, would you say?
like the origin of it or my perspective?
Your perspective.
I mean, I would say exactly what I was talking about. Life keeps changing. We have to evolve. And if we keep chasing materialistic things or, like I said, status, a sense of belonging, these things that as we grew up, we thought they were the answer. It's what we perceived, saw our parents doing, people we looked up to, role models, teachers. We're like, ooh, they do that. That must make them happy. So I must do that in order to be happy. But what happens is it doesn't. So then you go on this whole journey of growing up and figuring out what happiness actually means to yourself, and some people figure it out and some people don't. So for me, um let's see, last April I was let go from a job, and that job I thought gave me happiness. It had a lot to it. I had a lot of achievements I never thought I was capable of doing in that role. I had a lot of people that looked up to me, and I feel like we served a purpose in each other's lives of helping one another. It was very impactful in that way. I learned a lot, I grew a lot, but now that I've had to let that go, it was like a home. It was a family. And I had to let that go, and I realized it wasn't that place that created happiness.
It was
It
you.
was it was the yeah, well, I had to learn to change again, because even if that did give me temporary happiness for 3 years or whatever purpose it served in my life, I it wasn't there anymore. So I had to change. I had to redefine what's happiness now. What am I working towards? Who am I going to be? Who am I now? So it's all these questions of identity and how I can take what I've lost, what I've gained, and start my new path towards happiness again.
That makes a ton of sense, and you made a ton of progress with that. It's not easy. I feel like a lot of us have our identities wrapped up in jobs. I know I had for a really long time. When I got let go in February, and well, we mutually separated. Um, it was it was more so a piece of my identity because I had finally reached a certain income level, right? And that was very important to me, or I thought it was. And it was something that I didn't think I was going to achieve till my 30s. And I finally hit that magic number in my head, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I finally got here." When it's ripped away from you, you're like, "Huh, this sucks. What am I gonna do now?" Unemployment's like a fourth of this.
Oh yeah.
So, you get used to being a certain person, and I wrap myself more not in the identity of the job, but in the identity of the financial security it provided. Because I'd never had to worry about money, and I'd worried about it for years and years till probably the age of 22, 23, because I came from literally nothing. So when I finally reached that, I was like, okay, I don't have to worry anymore. I can pay my bills. Things are good. I have a bunch of money coming in that I can keep on the side. Then it's gone. And you have to be okay with rebuilding who you are, coming back from the bottom and saying, okay, I did it once. I can do it again. And maybe it's not in corporate America again. Maybe it's doing this podcast. Thank you to whoever's listening this far. But it's how can I adapt and change to make sure that I am who I want to become and who I think I am?
Yeah, it's scary. Like, I mean, yeah, my income was at a level in the career that I've chosen. It was way above what I thought I could achieve. And now I'm back at square one, it feels like. And that's kind of a weird dose of reality. And something it's hard to swallow. I think it's the pride. but you tend to learn to humble yourself again and realize it's not so bad. I can make this work. I just need to make adjustments.
Yep,
It felt like the end.
it does.
It does. And then you have to reassure yourself it's going to be okay. Each day was a struggle. And finally, months later you're okay.
Oh yeah. You get
Yeah.
used to it again. You're back to baseline. And I think that
Mhm.
happens with everything. I think
Yeah.
also in a weird way, both of us kind of let go of that identity that that financial security also provided us because we used to go out a lot before. And now, like, we've gotten to the point where going out doesn't bring us that much pleasure. At least it doesn't for me.
Or
Um,
joy.
or joy. Yes, joy. It doesn't. Whereas, like, I used to go to the bar and pound 6 shots and feel like the man. Now, going to the bar and pounding 6 shots, I'm going to have a pounding headache in the morning and I'm not going to enjoy myself. So there's no point of that. And now I don't even like
Yeah.
going out to the bars.
Mhm. Again, it's changing. When you're faced with hard things, you have to figure out what's really important. And that's
Yes.
how you define happiness for yourself. What's important to me? What's purposeful? What's fulfilling? What am I missing that I used to love doing? Because with my previous role, I think I sacrificed a lot at the same time, and I'm coming back to realize I think I missed a lot of that creative aspect of myself. Uh, and kind of let that go to the side because I was managing other people, whether they were clients or coaches, etc. It took a lot out of me. So every time I said yes to that, I was saying no to something else, and then all of a sudden, you're sitting there in front of the mirror, looking at yourself like, "What happened?" Like I thought that was making me happy, but did it? What's going to make me happy now? I work at a job now. I'm thankful for that I can pay my bills, but I am trying to learn how to enjoy this more, this video
Mhm.
stuff and our podcasts and getting comfortable with that. But I do like the conversations. I've always loved deep conversations, creative writing, music. Like that is important to me, but I have kind of put it on the side
Yep.
for other things, such as, maybe it did turn out to be to prove to myself or other people I could make enough money, that I was capable of being this person, looking a certain way, being a certain way. But it's like, why? In a second, people can take that away from me. That was a crazy lesson, Danny.
Oh, 100% for me too. Because it's like, it's not you who can do it. It's you didn't build that thing. So somebody can just make that decision and let you go as good as you are. And both of us were really good at our jobs. And
Because we cared.
yep, that's hard.
Yeah.
And you learn to move on from those identities of those people that you were, and you kind of mourn that, you know? I think that's
Mhm.
also part of the pursuit of happiness. You realize, oh, that didn't really make me happy.
Mhm.
You know, like you with your creative aspects, like, I don't know how much I'm going to share here, but you're a very talented musician. And I wish you would record more. And
Well, thank you.
you're welcome. I was genuinely surprised the first time I heard you sing. I was like, holy hell, this woman is good at what she does. And yeah, and that job took time away from that. And my job took away time for me to do YouTube because YouTube was always the thing that I wanted to do since I was a kid. But I was making so much money in sales that I was like, well, I don't really need the money, but a part of my heart was gone because I succumbed to the corporate pressures, and I didn't use the money for what it was there for. I used it to seek like the Kid Cudi song, those bad things instead of or poor uses of money rather than being a good steward of it, buying better equipment, learning the process, and actually delving deep into the content world which, only took us till 2024 to get here. but at least we're
You
doing
know
it.
how I feel about this. I've always boycotted, said no, but here we are. It's a new thing, a
It
new
is.
year. But I think it was just scary for me to sit here and I honestly, I guess maybe it was, what are other people's gonna think? Am I going to be good enough? I mean, we all have these, whether or not we want to say it. These are the questions that go through our headspace, and uh, it's getting better. I think we're trying to figure it out day to day. We have many conversations, heated conversations at times where, well, how are we going to do this? What are we going to talk about? Are we going to
Hmm.
make an outline? Are we not? Like, and we have to just talk through it. And I think this has gone pretty well. One thing we didn't touch on quite yet is, what is the origin of this whole entire topic, the pursuit of happiness? I know you and I discussed a little bit John Locke, also Thomas Jefferson.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. You know history. Woof.
Yeah.
Uh, and the Declaration of Independence. It sounded like he came up with that phrase from John Locke. Who kind of coined that originally, correct?
Yeah, so John Locke, I believe it was 1690, he basically put it into the common laws that, hey, the pursuit of happiness is akin to liberty. And Jefferson probably read that and said, well, America is about freedom, right? And the Declaration of Independence was to say, hey, we are separating from Britain. We want our freedom. And so we have the right to pursue happiness. I think that's what Thomas Jefferson was basically getting at. And I'd say those origins are really important, especially more so now in 2024, because I feel like so many people feel lost and they've stopped pursuing what actually makes them happy and have started to pursue more hedonistic things. And this isn't coming from a, God perspective or a faith perspective, but this is coming from a drinking yourself to death is not going to make you happy. I've done it. It's not going to work. I have found myself at the bottom of a bottle many, many times. It doesn't work. What actually works is dealing with all the inside stuff. And that's the stuff that'll actually make you happy.
Ask for help,
That too.
accept help.
Yes. For my men
Yeah.
out there, it's very hard to ask for help. It's very hard to ask for help because you're seen as weak. But sometimes you find a couple good guys or girls in your corner and you ask for the help and you take the help when it's offered. That was my biggest problem was I would never take the help. Don't be too proud and take the help. Might save your own life.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Well, that
other
that
than
went
that,
somewhere quick.
yeah, that got deep.
So so the pursuit of happiness, like back 1600s, 1700s, it, it also was very intertwined with freedom. And now in 2024, it's like we all think we have these rights. We're just allowed these things. We're privileged. But are we?
Do we
You
have
you
those
know like
rights?
it's such a tough thing because you just think how many years have passed and how much the world has changed, but we're still living by 16, 1700s. But what does that mean for 2024?
I think it's still the freedom to pursue a good life. I think that is what it means today. And I think it's just being able to figure out what that means for you
Yeah,
individually.
and not getting consumed in things,
People, social media.
money, like what we call temptation, sin, however you define it, is
Mhm.
fine. Like there's no right or wrong there with how you define things that can consume you. And when they consume you and control you, are they healthy or unhealthy? But that's for you to define.
Exactly. And these things can be good and bad, and in excess, they can be bad. In moderation, they can be fine. I know some people who can have one drink, one beer, and be fine. I know somebody who can gamble $40 and be fine. It's when you start seeing these as solutions to your problems instead of entertainment,
Mhm.
that's when it becomes unhealthy. And that's when it starts to consume you.
the intent, purpose that it's serving you or not serving you. Are you
Exactly.
are you just trying not to face something?
Or feel? Are you trying to numb out? It's what a lot of these addictions and vices do. We talked about vices
Mhm.
last week. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Process
what
them,
what are you doing?
face them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It will make you better in the end. It's scary, it's hard, it hurts. It's it's not easy. No.
And you
No.
will go through a few crises. You'll be going through some existential crises for sure. We all have. But at the end of it, you become better. At least I hope you do. I feel like I have, but I'm not sure. Depends on the day.
Just reflect, look inside yourself, and in the long run, if you choose, it's gonna be okay. Just remind
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah, that's a good place to go. Choose to rise up and
Yeah.
plug our slogan.
Well, first just sit down and kind of define what's happiness to you and how you feel you can start your pursuit to true happiness.
Yep. These are actionable steps. So take a moment, close your eyes, visualize for about 2 minutes. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. If
Mhm.
you could have anything you wanted, what would that be? And you take that imagery, you write it down, you reflect on it, you look at it, and you say, would this actually make me happy? And if it
Right.
does, find some ways to pursue those goals. Break them down into tiny pieces, and
Mhm.
you'll get there.
So what do we say? Choose to rise up.
I think so. That's a good
Okay,
slogan.
deal.
We've had it for a while. Choose to rise up.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. Our free meeting is ending here. So this is
Yes.
the
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
yes, if you made it this far, we appreciate you very much.
Mhm.
I'm Danny. This is Haley. We have -1 in the books, and we will see y'all next week.
Awesome.